Bernie Sanders wrote a pretty interesting piece this morning. It came out. It's on theguardian.com. A lot of the themes that he's always talked about, but a little bit more targeted, against the corporate media. So I wanted to read some of it to you, give my thoughts. Headline: The corporate media ignores the rise of oligarchy. The rest of us shouldn't. So Bernie Sanders, obviously on the campaign trail, I covered many of his rallies, spoke quite a lot about oligarchy. Yes, hit the bell to get notifications when I go live. There's some funny stuff going on with YouTube where people aren't getting notifications even though they signed up for it. People who have subscribed are getting unsubscribed. Quite interesting things, which I'm talking to YouTube about behind the scenes. So stay tuned for that. So Bernie writes this piece about corporate media. Now, the rapid rise of oligarchy and wealth and income inequality is the great moral, economic, and political issue of our time. Yet it gets almost no coverage from the corporate media. How often do network newscasts report on the 40 million Americans living in poverty, or that we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major nation on earth? How often does the media discuss the reality that our society today is more unequal than at any time since the 1920s, with the top 0.1% now owning almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%? How often have you heard the media report the stories of millions of people who today are working longer hours for lower wages than was the case 40 years ago? How often has ABC, CBS, or NBC discussed the role that the Koch brothers and other billionaires play in creating a political system which allows the rich and the powerful to significantly control elections and the legislative process in Congress? Sadly, the answer to these questions is almost never. The corporate media has failed to let the American people fully understand the economic forces shaping their lives and causing many of them to work 2 or 3 jobs, while CEOs make hundreds of times more than they do. Instead, day after day, 24/7, we're inundated with the relentless dramas of the Trump White House, Stormy Daniels, and the latest piece of political gossip. We urgently need to discuss the reality of today's economy and political system and fight to create an economy that works for everyone and not just the 1%. So I'll put the description to this article after I'm done. The rest of it, you've heard it from Bernie before. I thought it was interesting to bring this up because my business partner, Jen, and I have been talking, and this morning I talked to her, and during the day, I have CNN or MSNBC on, and Jen was joking with me, oh, you're secretly establishment. And I said to her, no, there's nothing else. There's no all day progressive network to watch on television. There's really no all day progressive network to watch on the internet. I mean, yeah, you wait for videos from Jimmy or Kyle Kalinske or Lee Comp or Jamarl Thomas or Mike from the Humanist Report and these kinds of things. But there's really no network. There's no cable channel or all day thing that you could go to for actual non-corporate news. I mean, do you know of anything? And it's frustrating because for me, I keep CNN or MSNBC on just in case something actual breaks, I don't know, some kind of attack or, something political that I want to respond to. Also, it gives me good fodder to go after people on Twitter, which I enjoy. But there's really a void. And the reason is, you look at the industries that shouldn't be about profit, but have become about profit over the last 20 to 30 years. You look at healthcare. Should not be about profit. People's health and treatment for things like cancer and those kinds of things should not be up in the air based on whether they could pay for it or not. That's why the majority of other countries have universal healthcare. Nor should the media be a profit engine. That's why in the past, when, in the 1970s, 80s, right before Bill Clinton, I wouldn't call Vice necessarily progressive anymore, in my opinion. But right before they deregulated the whole media industry, you had, NBC, CBS, ABC, their sports divisions, their entertainment shows is what brought in money. And it was understood that the news department would kind of be like a loss leader. But you wouldn't make a lot of money off of it. In some cases, you'd lose money. However, it was for branding. It was for your brand, so you had credibility. That is not the case anymore. You have multi-billion-dollar corporate conglomerates owning the news. And you have essentially public relations professionals masquerading as journalists. I mean, I sent out a tweet the other day about, Wolf Blitzer is on air interviewing folks about Gina Haspel, who is set to replace Mike Pompeo as CIA director. And it's a known fact. She not only was behind a lot of the torture program under the Bush administration, she oversaw it in person, some of this torture. And Wolf Blitzer says, well, let's remember the context. It was right after 9/11, and, she was just following orders. So if Wolf Blitzer was around in the 1940s, would he just say, well, it's the war and, the Nazis were just following orders? This is the problem. When you have MSNBC Morning Joe in the morning, when you have MSNBC Morning Joe in the morning, they're interviewing the lawyer to Stormy Daniels, who's an adult film star who apparently had an affair with the president. And, they're picking at him, and finally he says, yes, she was threatened. Don't know by who. Was it Trump? Was it someone close to him? And then it's on a loop all day. It's become the TMZ-ification of the news. And I respectfully say to Bernie Sanders, who I admire, I make no secret of that, well, if corporate media is the problem, why do you keep going on corporate media, Bernie? I mean, you're on Meet the Press all the time. You're on CNN all the time. I understand trying to reach all audiences, cable news, older audience, you still want to talk to them, but there's other ways of talking to those people. And I think at a certain point, we have to stop legitimizing what's on CNN. We have to stop and that includes me. I spend a lot of time focusing on what's on there because it's fun and it gives me entertainment to go after them. And I do think there is value in pointing out the lies, in pointing out the myths, the deception, the conflicts of interest, the blatant corporatization of our news. But I think it's really, really scary because we also have to look at the selective coverage. And I'll give you an example. So CNN is now talking about that Russia apparently, allegedly released like a nerve agent in America's electrical grid and all this stuff. They're getting it from unnamed officials like they get everything else from. I read about it. I don't see any specifics or evidence of that. But let's just say that's true for a second. Because I wouldn't put it past. I mean, Russia is not like a bastion of freedom. Russia's government has killed dissenters. Russia's government has killed journalists. So, I mean, it's not like it is, out of the realm. But they're so concerned about a nerve agent. They're so concerned about a potential nerve agent for which there's no proof that Russia actually did that. What about the nerve agents that are being released all over the United States in the form of dirty water and poisoned water? Yeah, it's not a nerve agent, but why is the media up in arms about a nerve agent through the electrical grid? But every single day I'm reporting on new water contamination. I got another one to tell you about today. There's not a peep about that in corporate media. Why are they not reporting on the dangers and the health consequences of all these GMOs in the food and Monsanto's shenanigans? So it's very selective what we're seeing from the corporate media. Now it's as the Trump turns. They're fixating on every hour. Who's Trump going to fire? Oh, we heard this. Oh, he's having dinner with this I am going to talk about one person who should scare all of us. But they're saying, Russia hacked our electrical grid. Well, the Washington Post reported that Russia hacked the Vermont's electrical grid and then had to come out and say that wasn't true. They didn't retract the story because they're not real journalists. And by the way, they have a $600 million contract with the CIA that they never disclose. And press the share button to get this out to more people. Unfortunately, YouTube, through its algorithm and other ways, are making it very difficult for people to see that I and other independent media are live. They're making it difficult to see when we have published videos. So you're going to have to be diligent. Keep checking back with my channel, other people's channel that you follow. But I thought that story was interesting from Bernie. He was saying a lot of the things that we expect from Bernie, but in the context of, when you look at what the corporate media did with Iraq, that war could not have been launched without the corporate media. It just couldn't. The New York Times, Judith Miller, through egregious, essentially passing off with Dick Cheney, George Tenet, Wolfowitz, all these people basically told them, just passing it off as fact. And it helped lead us to a war. And honestly, I'm afraid the same thing's happening now. I also think that, Trump is a terrible president, is a terrible person, but, in the mad dash to cover the salaciousness of, Stormy Daniels and who Trump's, the chaos inside the Trump administration, they're basically not actually covering what he's doing, what his administration doing, what is Rick Perry, his energy secretary, doing. I could tell you it's not good. What is EPA Chief Scott Pruitt doing? I could tell you it's not good. I mean, it goes down the list, all the terrible things being done. They don't cover it day to day. They only cover the chaos, the sensationalism. So Bernie is on point. And I also think, I'm not saying this is a self-promotional way, but it's going to take more than just me reporting day to day. It's going to take more than Jimmy, all these people. It's going to take you. You have to be diligent. You have to help create the media that you want to see.